topic for this part of the gym today is motivation. We all love it and we all hate it, and it's so hard some days, especially if we don't feel good, if we're tired, if we have cravings. There's just all kinds of reasons motivation can get us down. So we're just going to take a look at it and see what we can do. A lot of the ideas we're going to talk about come from James Clear's Atomic Habits book. If you don't have it, get it. If you have it, read it and read it again. This man is a genius when it comes to how to break things down, to redo habits, but also what to do if you're not feeling motivated. He said one of the most surprising things that they found is that a lot of times you're not motivated when you start something, and that starting it actually motivates you. So if you don't feel like doing something, start it, and that really does help. So how do you do that? Mel Robbins had a great idea in one of her books, and she calls it the countdown method. Remember at Cape Canaveral, they would go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off, and somehow we're conditioned to blast off when we hear that countdown. So she said, if I need to get up and I just don't feel like getting up, or if I need to go do something and I just don't feel like doing something, she'll do the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, and she's there. That really does help in getting your motivation going. So that thing called inertia, that law of physics, an object in motion tends to remain in motion, or an object at rest tends to remain at rest unless acted upon by another force. Now that force is us. If we're at rest, we have to act upon that. And so Clear makes some suggestions for how to do that as we're pushing that boulder up the hill. First, he said, make sure that the task, the goal that you're trying to do is easy to start. If it's not easy to start, we tend to put it off. It just seems too overwhelming, or we just don't feel enough energy in the moment to get it going. The second thing he says is get up and moving. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off. Moving actually helps our inertia. I've found that if I come home from work and I just flop down, it's going to be hard for me to flop back up. But if I don't sit, if I just keep going until I'm done with whatever my task is, it's so much easier, because an object in motion tends to remain in motion. The last one is to follow a pattern every single time you do it. I cannot overemphasize the importance of routine. One of our gyms will be on routine, but if you don't have a routine, figure out how to create one for yourself, because that makes it so much easier. You just do it without thinking. Clear also talks about what he calls the Goldilocks rule. Remember Goldilocks? It was too hot or too cold or just right, or too soft or too hard or just right. And that's the Goldilocks rule. We want to find that sweet spot between this is too hard to start or to keep up, and it's too easy, so I'm going to be bored by it. So as you're planning how you're going to do your plan, think about the Goldilocks rule. Said in a different way, the neuroscientists are finding that different parts of our brain, and I think this is so unfair, different parts of our brain have choose the goal and the execution. So the goal part of my brain is not going to be the part that actually does it. So it's very important for the goal part of my brain to check in with the does it side before the goal is set, because I'll set my goal too high, and then when it comes time for the other part to follow through on the goal, it'll just go, you know what, this is too hard, I'm giving up. So it's really important that you look at the two together. Do I have enough energy? Do I have enough resources to actually reach this goal? Or is this just something I'd really, really like to see in my future, but in reality, I don't have it in me? So the scientists make 3 suggestions to help us through that. When deciding between the goals or the tasks, be sure to put how much work you anticipate you're going to need in order to reach that goal. And you want to do the Goldilocks rule. You don't want it to be too easy, because that'll get boring and it won't feel like you've done anything. Goals feel good when we reach them, but also make sure it's not too hard. And then when things get hard in this execution side of our brain, executing the goal, we want to make sure that we look toward the overall goal and its payoffs for us, the reasons that we're doing it, the whys that we talked about when we talked about change. And then imagine those moments already happening. You've crossed the finish line, you've got the reward, and that can help you push things over. The other thing that I thought was fun is that dopamine is a huge motivator. And all of us know that. Our dopamine pathways get lit up when we think about sugar, let alone eating it, or baked goods or the yummy stuff. But the cool thing is they also love things like almonds, bananas, avocados, chicken, beans, eggs, fish, dark chocolate. Those all build our dopamine. It all creates more dopamine. So go into the foods that are healthier for us, but will also increase the level of dopamine, and that is also a motivator. And then how do I maintain motivation? So the best way to do that is to track. And I love tracking. I really hate it too, but I love tracking because it gives me a sense of accomplishment. The only way I can track is to have a tracker of some kind. I use a Fitbit, but you can use an Apple Watch. You can just put your phone in your pocket to see how many steps you've walked. It's also really important to track what you eat and what you drink. There's a lot of great apps out there, Verytastic, FitnessPal, Fitbit, Apple Watch, all of those are great. Find a tracker that works for you and then keep it. I have found that one of the predictors of success over the long term is to track. And it's funny because if we have to put the food that we're eating in our tracker, it causes us to think about it really hard before we actually put it in there. When we quit tracking and we don't have to have that accountability, that's when we can start to slip up. So measure your tracking as you're looking at it from a place of curiosity, of non-judgment, of openness, and see these things that you're looking at as failure and not feedback. It would be great if we had 100% on our trackers, but it's actually really important to track the times it didn't work so that we can figure out why they didn't work and what we'll do the next time. And it also helps you to see that you're showing up for your life and you're trying to live mindfully. We all know that preparation for bariatric surgery is time consuming, and it really does focus on us. It's so easy after the surgery to start focusing on other things. Tracking is a way to take time to focus back on ourselves every day so that we can hold ourselves accountable and we can kind of see if we're starting to head a direction that we don't want to go. The other thing that's important to understand about motivation is that thoughts create feelings, and feelings create action or behavior. And so the more positive our thoughts are, the more positive our feelings are, and we have a tendency then to do those things easier that are harder to do. Also, keep things in perspective and lean into any discomfort so that it can teach you. Discomfort is a great teacher. It's an uncomfortable teacher, but it's a great teacher. So learn to lean into discomfort, but see things from a perspective of curiosity and non-judgment. James Clear says, you will never regret good work once it's done. And I think that's great. Once it's done, it's like, oh, I'm glad I did this, but I don't want to do it again. He says, we all want the gold, but not the grind. And that is a really great observation. And then actually, this is what life looks like. It looks hard sometimes, and it looks easy sometimes. We need a balance of hard and easy. Hard keeps things from being boring, and easy lets us take a rest once in a while. He says, what is life if not the sum of 100,000 daily battles and tiny decisions to either gut it out or give it up? And I love, am I going to gut it out or am I going to give it up today? So there's an emotions workout for you to do. Are you struggling with a goal or a task, or do you want to start a new one? So use the following 3 principles to help you as you're doing that. The first one is to make it easy to start. So that might mean breaking it down into smaller pieces, little tiny chunks that you can feel like, wow, I got this one down, and then just start to stack those up. The second one is to make sure it gets you moving. Again, don't sit down as you're planning this out. Do it standing up, or execute it standing up, and then follow the same pattern every single day. We're going to talk more about this when we talk about habits, but if we have that pattern, it really takes a lot of the thinking out of it, and that's what we want to do, is to do it so automatically that we don't have to think about it. So remember, it's not failure, it's just feedback. Try to find your sweet spot, not too hard, not too easy. so that you don't feel bored and you don't feel overwhelmed. And if it does not work out that way, you either get bored or overwhelmed, reset immediately and start again. It helps to write down your insights and learnings in your bariatric journal so that you can remember them and you won't have to do it over and over again. So until next time, have fun at the gym.